Yoruba is the one class I failed.
What?
Yoruba is the one class that I failed.
Yoruba. I
Yeah.
also feel Yoruba. Oh.
How?
I also feel Yoruba, man. Like it was, I guess because in Lagos, like aside from the fact that they teach you like proper, like, oh, how do you say good morning and all of that,
Yeah.
our Yoruba classes, we had to do like write like essays, we had to read like poems, we had to analyze all this like figures of speech in Yoruba, and it was hard. so so I failed it too. I even dropped out. I stopped doing Yoruba from like year 10. Yeah.
Dang, you're like, nope, not for me. I'm already Yoruba. I don't need to know more.
Right. But yeah, let's do it.
My name is Enyoma, and this is the We the Africans podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a very special guest. His name is Olumide Longe, correct?
Correct.
So welcome to my podcast. And
Awesome.
first of all, you cut your hair, right?
Yeah, I did. I used to,
growing yours out.
I used to always walk around with an afro, but I decided that I need to try a new look.
It's funny because I was just thinking everybody in this pandemic has been growing their hair out, and you literally just went the opposite direction. I was like, snip, snip.
I guess that's the kind of life I live. I always go to the direction.
So speaking about the life that you live, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. So I don't know if you're familiar with Surulere, but I grew up in Surulere. I spent like the first 9 years of my life in Surulere. That was where I grew up there with most of like my cousins. That was kind of like my early introduction to like business or selling, whatever. Because after school, I would always like go to my mom's shop to help her sell after school as well. Then we moved over to Magodo. And I've been in Magodo for like since I was like 10. So yeah. So if I were to go back home now, I'll be going back to Magodo.
Yeah, what was your living situation like? Were you guys well-to-do? Were you kind of like middle class? Is there a middle class kind of, or were you, hustling?
I wouldn't say we were hustling. I'd like to say probably somewhere between middle class and probably well-to-do. I know we weren't suffering. My dad provided well for the family. My mom as well. They both had full-time jobs and they both had their side businesses as well. So yeah, we were well exposed and we were well taken care of. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Yeah. But you enjoyed your childhood there?
I loved it. Like childhood is like my best memory. Like I love this so much. I grew up so I come from a Muslim family, and my dad has like probably over like 15 siblings. And when you think about that number, like think about how many cousins I had, right?
Yeah. So
it was just so many cousins. We would always go to this in the Islam religion. There's something called Salah. I don't know if you've heard of it. Kind of like Ramadan, right? It's Ramadan, and we would always go to the family house, and it's just like tens and tens of people, and it was just so much fun.
Wow. 15 siblings. Oh my goodness.
Over 15.
Over 15.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun, actually. As a child, you always have people to play with.
Definitely.
So when did you move to the States?
I moved to the US in 2015 for school. Yeah, that's when I moved to the States.
Why?
Interesting question. So I initially started school at Unilag, University of Lagos. I was studying chemical engineering there. And then after my first year, I kind of figured out that I didn't want to continue school in Unilag. And I remember my dad and my older sister always like pushing me, oh, you should apply school in the US. But I really wanted to go to school in Lagos. But after my first year experience, I realized that, you know what, like these guys were right. Like I should have listened to these people. So, and I left primarily because of the kind of learner I am and the kind of things I do. It just didn't fit within the way school ran in Unilag. And I'm glad I was able to recognize that like early enough to say, hey, if I continue in this place, I probably won't achieve the things I want to achieve for myself. So I need to make the switch right now. So I went ahead and made that switch.
And how old were you?
I was 17 at the time.
Okay, so when you moved here, where did you move?
I moved to Texas, Houston, and keep in mind like that moving. I think I undertold like what it was like moving from school to Unilag because back then it was really hard for like people to like apply to schools. It wasn't necessarily hard, but people didn't know the resources or how to structure the approach to applying to leave the country. And I did all of that by myself, like no assistance from my dad, from my sisters. I didn't pay any agents. And I had to drop out from school after my first year to just spend like 6 months figuring out how the hell to leave Nigeria. So
Wow, you did all that by yourself.
I did all of that by myself.
Oh my gosh.
My dad didn't even know the schools I was applying. My parents didn't know the schools I applied to until I got admission and it was time to pay school fees.
Okay, so what school did you get into?
I got into Texas A&M.
Okay, and then you studied chemical engineering?
Yeah, I studied chemical engineering. I got in for chemical engineering. Then I made a transfer to the school I finished from which is Prairie View A&M University. And that's the HBCU, the historically Black college under the Texas A&M system. And yeah, so I graduated from PVM, Prairie View A&M University.
Okay. So I was reading some of the things that you were writing on Medium, and you
Oh,
said
really?
that, yeah, I was reading. I was like, okay, I gotta know, what to ask this dude. And you said you kept applying to Goldman Sachs
Right,
for an internship despite
right,
multiple rejections.
right.
Why was it so important to you to get into that?
I'll speak from the perspective of like just like personal like aspirations and then what it means being an international student in the US, right? So I'll speak about being an international student in the US first. So as an international student, right, one of our biggest worries is you don't want to graduate from school without having had an internship. And the reason why that's important is once you're done with school, you're going to be going into the job market.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you're familiar with the job market. You don't have any prior experience. No one is opening the doors to you, right? And so that was one thing. And then the other part was having an internship increased your chances of getting a full-time return offer. So for me, like that was a priority. And it wasn't just Goldman Sachs. Like I applied to BP and Tesla over and over again, other chemical engineering companies over and over again. But Goldman Sachs was the first company that actually opened up their doors to me. And that meant a lot to me. So I took the opportunity and I decided to run with it. And as far as like personal goals, Goldman Sachs fits very much within the whole idea of like achieving the things I wanted to achieve. Like if you think about their financial services company providing services to like almost every industry out there. They provide services for people in consulting, for people in oil and gas, people in technology. So there's an opportunity to be exposed to just different things. Even we have a lot of like entrepreneurship like programs for founders. So there's so many things you could be exposed to at Goldman Sachs. And that was what like motivated me from a personal perspective.
Did you see other people who were Black or Nigerian or African in the same like internship group, or were you kind of alone?
Right. So I think Goldman Sachs does like a fairly good job as far as like diversity and inclusion, in my honest opinion. During my internship, there were although the number was pretty small compared to like to the overall class. I know during my internship there were like about probably 30 of people who identified the same as me as far as like race.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wasn't the only person, but I would say in other interviews I had been in, there were a couple of times where I was like the only like Black person or the only Nigerian or the only Black man interviewing for the same position. And yeah.
Did you feel like when you came at 17, right? Did you feel intimidated when you landed here because like you have an accent, everything is so different, but then you also came to Houston, which is like Nigeria part two. How was the transition?
Yeah, I would say I didn't feel intimidated, but I struggled to kind of like to blend in, right? Because I'm sure you already mentioned the accent. That was a big issue. I remember repeating myself probably like 4 or 5 times to people and they couldn't hear me. And it got to a point where I tried to speak in a way that would understand me, but it also got to a point that, you know what, these people don't speak in a way, they don't try to speak in a way that I would understand them because they also had an accent and I tried to catch it. And I just one day decided, you know, I'm going to speak the way I speak. And if you hear me, you hear me. If you don't, you don't. Like, and but I mean, being in the US for 6 years now, my accent has kind of like sizzled out a bit.
Yeah.
But like that moment where I decided I don't need to struggle to speak in a way they hear me, like they need to hear me. Like if they don't hear me, that's their problem.
Right.
So yeah.
So the burden, you just decided the burden is not on you to like make them understand your speech. Like they just have to.
Exactly. Exactly, especially since I'm speaking English, like I'm not speaking a foreign language. So,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you read the book Americana?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So there's basically there was the girl in there basically just decided one day she was just going to not force herself to speak in an American accent. She was just gonna speak in a Nigerian accent, and people will understand it if they want, and they won't understand it if they
Right.
don't want. And I was like, it's kind of brilliant. Didn't have that option. So okay. So after was the Goldman Sachs internship before your Stanford fellowship?
Um, it was during the time of the fellowship as well.
You were doing both simultaneously?
Yes. Keep in mind, like the fellowship was it's an ongoing thing. You know, there's a saying, once a fellow, always a fellow. So I spent most of the spring of 2019 actually like doing like hard work as regards to the fellowship, and like my Goldman internship was over the summer. So I didn't really have to, and during the summer, the fellowship kind of like slows down a bit. So I didn't have any like divided attention or anything like that.
This is a Stanford Innovation Fellowship.
Correct.
What pushed you into that?
So first of all, I'll talk about what the fellowship is.
Mm-hmm.
So the fellowship is all about like reimagining education, like educational like institutions, right? And they have a specific focus on a lot of like the schools that you wouldn't hear like on a regular basis, like especially like HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions. And what pushed me was there weren't many fellows who had come out of my school at the time. And when I came on campus, like, you know, it was all I was out and about. I was doing everything I could do. So the people who had gone through the fellowship in the past, they recognized me and were like, hey, Olu, I think you would be good for this. And I applied to it because number one, like the name had like Stanford in front. And two, it was a great opportunity for me to really like see how other people from like different schools, different cultures, like, and when I say different cultures, the fellowship is so diverse, extremely diverse. And during the fellowship, we solved like, we spoke about like issues that affecting like different groups of people, like really hard like problems, like how do we stop climate change? How do we bring power to like to underdeveloped communities? Like those were the kind of things we were talking about. And just the experience in itself, like it was just really fulfilling for me.
So I'm trying to think like, is this related to chemical engineering, or is this like a divergent path?
Good question. Good question. So I like to say that when I went into school, when I started school, when I decided what I wanted to study at school, I didn't have the experience, so I didn't have the proper guidance as far as like picking what I would study in school, right? And I love Nigerians. Once we put our mind to something, we run with it, like we continue to go with it, right? Until we kind of realize that, oh, maybe I should have done this in retrospect. But I was really good at chemistry and physics and math in secondary school. So I was like, you know what, chemical engineering would make sense. Turns out chemical engineering is vastly different from like chemistry. It's mostly math and physics. So most of the things I've done, they don't directly relate to chemical engineering, if I'm being honest. And I just think that speaks to the fact that each and every one of us are allowed to explore things outside of what we studied in school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's not an easy thing. People struggle to like transition or just take on like multiple like interests. It's not an easy thing, but I think the first step is knowing that you can, and a lot of people don't know they can. So for me, that was what it was for me. I knew that I could explore different things. I knew that I could study chemical engineering and go be a musician, and I could study chemical engineering and go talk about raising capital for startups. I knew I could study chemical engineering and also be interested in medicine. So yeah.
So you felt that you had that freedom from like your family upbringing, from your parents, especially because Nigerian parents are always pushing their children to doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Right.
You've always felt like you had the freedom to explore your options more.
Yes, that's actually really good. So my parents have, the way they are, this is my honest perspective of them. They're there to support, like period, right? Regardless of what you want to do. My elder sister, she went to school for electrical engineering, and I don't recall her being forced to do electrical engineering. That was a choice. My other sister who went to law school, she's about to become a journalist right now. So she's actually deviating from being a lawyer. And me, myself, I went to school for chemical engineering and now I'm working in finance. So it's always been, hey, they trust their children, like they trust us very much to make the right decisions, and they're just there to step into support, to provide their own perspective. And yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, yeah, we've raised you well. We trust that the decisions you make are going to be solid decisions.
Right. And I thank them very much for that, because like you mentioned, that's rare.
So I'm like, it's so freaking rare. I mean, yeah, that's amazing. I'm so happy that you have that. So now let's talk about your projects. So I have two that I want to discuss. The first is Round Trip. Could you please tell me what that's about?
So Round Trip Africa is something that's very dear to me, and the whole idea for Round Trip Africa came from the fact that I was an African living in the diaspora, but I cared very deeply about like what was happening back home as far as like technology, the future. Like I'm sure you see all these buzzwords, and I wanted to find a way to help younger folks like myself tap into this this future, right? This future that was being created, and because we're in the diaspora, I had no idea how to tap into that. So I decided to go ahead and start Round Trip Africa. And what we do is we help young founders, young aspiring founders who are Africans living in diaspora connect back home. We help them build out their ideas. We help connect them to resources and investors and things like that. So that's what we do. And our slogan at Round Trip is "We're delivering Africa's future." And so that's what we do.
So if somebody wanted to, does it have to be like science and technology related for the most part? So for example, like if you wanted to build like a solar farm or a wind farm or something like that back home, is that kind of what you're doing, is connecting someone who's in diaspora with resources?
Right. So at the end of the day, when we review applications, it plays very much to the story you tell, right? Our last fellowship, our last cohort, the pitch day, the person who won the pitch day wasn't necessarily building software. They were actually building like hardware, like tech, like kind of like what you discussed, like, and their idea was around like sustainability. So it wasn't even software, right? So although that's our focus, right? Let's hear a story, like how well does it plug into what we're trying to do, and what's the value for like our continent?
Okay. Are you also helping them raise finances for it, or are you simply connecting them with people back home who could partner with them?
So as far as like helping raise money for it is, we give them the exposure, right? Okay. We introduced our last cohort. We had like a VC from like one of the most active like VC funds come in and talk to them, hear their ideas. They actually pitched to him. Even on our demo day as well, we had an investor as well judged like the demo day. So we provide exposure for them. And we had some of the investors who took part in the cohort say, hey, I want to continue to talk to XY company. I want to continue to talk to this founder. And we made that connection happen there. So we enable like those connections, those relationships.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing that?
About a year and a half now. Oh, wow. It's actually, yeah, it's actually been a year and a half now. Yeah.
Was that one of the things that was birthed out of your fellowship, or was that a project that you had in the back of your mind from before?
That was a project that came out from having a phone call with someone I met on Twitter.
That's awesome.
Right.
Social media is crazy, because literally how I found you was you commented on a picture or a video on like West African Man or something. And I was just like, I don't know, you commented something that I thought was a good comment. And I was like, who's this? I'd be going down rabbit holes on Instagram.
Let me tell you, I'm notorious for liking and commenting.
Yeah.
I'm sure people follow the pages I follow on Instagram. Like, there's hardly any posts you see where I don't comment on. And for me, it's just the engagement. Like, that's my own tactic to like exposing myself to people.
Right. So, yeah. So that's how I'm just like, who's that? Let's look on his page and see.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let's hear that.
I've met a couple of people that way too. Just, well, not met, but like followed a couple of people that way, just like,
right.
Finding them by a comment. So yeah, keep commenting. That's how we will.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so Round Trip sounds amazing. Let's talk about, is it Blademy or Blademy?
Blademy.
Awesome. So tell me about that one.
Blademy is one of the most impactful things I've ever worked on. It's a project that stretched my mind the most, even like my work ethic. It really helped me there. And the reason I started Blademy was, I'm going to talk about our vision here. So our vision at Blademy is to empower every Black person to achieve more. And that was the simplest way we could describe our vision, because we spent a lot of time thinking, what's our vision? What do we want to accomplish with this? And Blademy came out from the fact that I had a number, like going back to your earlier like question on like, was I the only Black person in interviews or whatever it might be? That was where it started from. Like myself and my co-founders, extremely high achieving people, like that's the only way I can describe them. And we would be in rooms where we're the only Black people, and we're like, I'm not the only Black person I know who's smart, who's high achieving. Like we need more people who are here. Like even if they might not have the GPA that we do, they're actually high achieving people as well, and they're really smart. They deserve to be in those rooms as well. And decided, we're going to start Blademy. And what we're going to do with Blademy is we're going to provide Black college students or Black millennials or anybody who's Black the opportunity to upskill and learn new things that will help position them better in the job market, or not just even in the job market, like help them realize that, hey, the job market is not the only path for me. I can go ahead and build my own company. I can go ahead and raise funds. I can go ahead and build my own VC fund. I can go ahead and do all these things. So yeah, that was where it came from. And our mission is to lower the entry barrier for Black people to bring their ideas to life. So that's our mission. So that's Blademy in a nutshell.
That's brilliant, actually. Amazing work. So we have platforms like Udemy and Skillshare. How would you say Blademy stands apart from those ones?
Yeah, great question. I would say I've used those two platforms before, and I'll speak very much about my experience with Skillshare, right? So I remember during the summer of last year, I wanted to get into like illustrations and graphic design. And I remember I was scrolling through, I went on Skillshare and I typed in graphic design and illustration, and I was just scrolling down, seeing a bunch of different instructors. And none of them piqued my interest until I don't even know this guy called Tim Coker. No. Tim Coker, like, is one of the best. I describe him as the best like Black graphic design illustrator out there, right? You should check him out on Instagram. And nothing piqued my interest until I saw a course from him, right? And for me, now here's the insight there is, as a Black person, as someone who identifies as being Black, you're more likely to subscribe to things you see being done by people who look like you. You think about when you go into a room, there's a bunch of like white people, Asians, people from different cultures, wherever it might be. You're going to look for people who are Black and Black. Oh, let me go talk to these people first, just to like get my grounding in the room before I start to move around and talk to other people. And that was what it was for me. Like, and that's why we do Blademy, right? We want people to realize that, hey, the things I want to learn, the things I want to achieve, there's people who look like me doing those things, and I can learn from those people as well, right? There's a sort of like, although it might not be like obvious, but it's there. Like if you're saying, oh, I want to, for example, you want to be a model, like you want to be a model, you want to like model for the big brands, and all you see, and for example, let's say you're a bit on the bigger side, and you look at all the ladies are slim, you're like, OMG, can I ever be a model? Like, so that's why we created Blademy. Like, hey, you can see that, hey, there's this Black person building AI technology, there's this person investing out of $100 million fund, and you can do that as well. So that's why we made Blademy.
Yeah, for representation, because otherwise, how would you know that you could do the same? It's true. My sister took a online trading class for like trading options and futures and stocks and all that, and she legit wanted to make sure that she took it from a Black person who had done it successfully. It just gives you extra confidence that once you've seen someone who looks like you, and even if they have vastly different backgrounds, it's just an extra confidence that, yeah, if they did it, I can do it too. So
exactly, 100%.
That's amazing. So I have just a few more questions.
No worries.
So someone like me, let's just say.
Sorry for the noise in the background. I didn't know.
That's okay. I can barely hear it. So someone like me, let's just say I'm a young person in Nigeria. I'm in my 20s. I would like to pursue an alternative career path, maybe entrepreneurship, maybe something in science and technology. and I don't really have access to most of the resources. I also don't have
Right.
a supportive family who is telling me that I can do this. They're more like, go and study nursing, do it right now. You know? What advice would you give to someone like that who is aspiring to maybe be like you one day and be in these positions of creating platforms?
I would say nobody believes you until you do it, right? Like nobody believes you until you do it. Like even your like I know Nigerian parents are very difficult, but if you think about like you look at like the people like Wizkid, you know, the big artists, Tiwa Savages, like the big artists, like I'm sure their parents, Dr. Seed, for example, Dr. Seed went to school for medicine. Like I'm not sure if it's medicine or dentistry, but something along those lines. I'm sure their parents didn't like envision them being like a musician or whatever. But today, their parents are their biggest fans. I can argue that for sure. So nobody believes you until you do it. No one supports you until you do it as well. I would say make sure you're open-minded. And, you know, I was talking to someone the other day and they were having this issue. And for me, I was like, you know what, like the way I think is my parents have done so much for me, right? If they have a specific ask from me, even if that's not what I want to do, I'm going to try as much to find a way to make them happy. Like if that's what you want to, I'm going to spend some time doing it. But once I hit gold on what I want to do, I'm out, right? And when you hit that gold, you need to make sure like you hit it very well. Because even though you hit it very well, you're going to continue to have that struggle back and forth, wherever it might be with your parents. And let's even move away from the parent. Like I feel like that's something little like we can overlook that for now, because I feel like these days, a lot of like young Africans, not just Nigerians, we have so much audacity. Like the audacity is insane. We have so much audacity. And I think everyone can tap into that, right? If you think, oh, I can't do this because my parents, is because of the society, go look out there on Twitter, go look out there on Instagram, go look out there on LinkedIn. Like there's a community of young Africans from different countries doing big things, going against the norm, and you can tap into that community, right? You can tap into those people, follow them, send them a message on LinkedIn, send them a message on Instagram. Hey, I enjoy what you're doing. I'm trying to do this. Do you have 5 minutes to talk about this? And just continue to do that. And a lot of it comes from like finding liberation, to be honest, right? And it's very hard as well being in Nigeria because of like the way things are structured, but continue to dig at it, to be honest. That's my advice. One day you're going to find clarity and the freedom you're looking for.
So if you never did anything else for the rest of your life, do you think you'd be happy doing what you're doing now?
There's so many things I still want to do. I'm only 24.
Right. Yeah. But do you feel like you've kind of found your purpose, like your calling?
Yeah, 100%. Like I know my purpose. Like I know what I want to be doing when I'm 30. I know what I want to be doing when I'm 40. I know what I need to be doing. Not even one. I know what I need to be doing at those times. And so yeah, I have a vision where I come together with like a group of people, mm-hmm. and we just build things, we create things, right? Like we basically create the future. I was literally talking about this with my friend on Clubhouse like 2 days ago. I don't know if you heard of Yemi Davis. No. He's one of the best like 3D creators I know. Like he creates like 3D like images, experiences, and things like that. And it's from Nigeria as well. Just amazing. And I was talking about how in the future we need to come together and like just create the future. We need to build things, right? We as Africans, we need to build artificial intelligence as well. We need to build blockchain technology. We need to build we need to imagine the next technology that's going to come through. We need to build infrastructure as well. So that's why I see myself. That's my vision. I'm going to be able to enable people to do these things, and I'm also going to do them as well.
That's wonderful. You're so young. You're doing such amazing things. I'm just
thank you.
It's wonderful. So just my last question, like how do you unwind? How do you relax? Do you go deeper into social media? Do you unplug from social media? Like, is it sci-fi? Is it, action movies? What's your thing?
Interesting. I like that question. So I drink tea a lot. I drink tea like every day. And I take walks almost every day. Wait,
when you say tea, do you mean like British tea, or are you talking like Nigerians call Milo and milk?
Oh, yeah, I mean British tea. No, okay. No, Milo is beverage, not tea.
Yeah.
So and I walk like about 2 miles every day. I also meditate a lot. I don't know if you heard of a Headspace.
Yes.
Yeah, I use Headspace a lot. I also love to travel.
Mhm.
I travel a lot as well, and I like stand-up comedy. Like that's stand-up comedy is one of the easiest ways for me to unplug.
Who's your
And
favorite stand-up comedian?
Dave Chappelle.
Good choice. Good choice.
Dave Chappelle. I also like Michael Shea.
Okay.
Very funny. Yeah, so Dave Chappelle. I was telling someone the other day, I don't know how Dave Chappelle still does comedy because his comedy is kind of like, even sometimes when I listen to it, I'm like, I'm offended, bro.
I know, but you're still laughing. Yeah. Yeah. It's so
But
like so not politically correct, but still
yeah,
hilarious.
I guess that's the whole point of comedy, right? Like
Yeah.
with comedy, like it's I don't know if you do this, like even sometimes like I laugh about like myself. But nobody laughs when someone else creates a joke about them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
But
right.
yeah, so that's how I unwind. I also collect art. I started collecting art last year, and it's been beautiful.
Wow. Any kind of art, or do you have a specific type that you like?
I like abstract art a lot, but a lot of the times, what determines if I collect someone's art is I'm very like the way I evaluate things. I kind of look at like, okay, let me see your artwork. Let me see how's your following grown in the last 2-3 years, and how has the price changed on your artwork, right, over the years, and that determines if I'm going to buy from you. And also, when I look at your artwork, do I just feel happy? Do I feel inspired, right? So yeah, that's how I like determine who I'm buying from. And also, I buy mostly from like women artists.
That's awesome. There's a I don't know how to say it, but it's Jekein. She's on
Okay.
she's on Instagram. She's a Nigerian artist based in Lagos. So
Mm.
I'll send you the link to her. You should check her out.
Yeah. Send it to me. Send it to me. If
Amazing.
you like Nigerian art as well, you should check out like Chigozie. I can send Chigozie and Valerie Fabuche.
Yeah.
Great
Send me.
artist. Nigeria. Yeah.
That's awesome. I see myself in the future collecting art. I'm not there yet at all. So, but
You should. You have some beautiful pieces behind you.
yeah, this picture is I just love it so much. It's so nice. But thank you so much for talking with me. I literally feel like in 10 years, you're just going to be like taking over the world. And it gives me hope because sometimes I feel despondent when I think about Nigeria and the shenanigans that are constantly going on, especially with our politicians, just basically not letting people live their full lives and giving them those opportunities. So it's wonderful to talk to you and see that you're actually making progress in that direction and just giving people platforms to explore their creativity and better the world that is around them. So thank you so much for using your gifts.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Enyi. Correct? Enyola.
Inyoma.
Inyoma.
Yes.
Inyoma, that's what you said. Yeah. I heard Enyola.
No.
I was so shocked. I was like, OMG, I thought like she wasn't a Yoruba person.
That's funny. No, but yeah, it's Inyoma. Yeah.
Inyoma. OMG. Sounds so much like Enyola.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for talking with me.
Yeah, thanks.
One of these days, maybe I will create something that can apply for a scholarship, or not a scholarship, but like to be featured on Round Trip. That would be cool.
Yeah, create something.
We'll see.
Anything. Yeah. All right.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Have a good night. Bye.